What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stuckey.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
Welcome to the Action Network podcast, and welcome to NFL Week 1 of the 2024 season. This is our final episode of the NFL preseason, our annual NFL awards episode, where our expert, Brandon Anderson, will highlight his favorite pick and long shots across MVP, Coach of the Year, Rookies of the Year, and more. Brendan Glasheen in the host chair. After today, we are knee-deep into NFL Week 1 here at the Action Network podcast with a full lineup of episodes, including our NFL Week 1 betting preview and best bets episodes this Thursday and Friday. So there's the lineup. This is our final preseason pod, Brandon, and you've been on a bunch of these awards. Always a fun time when we get to talk about these. We're going to start with Offensive Rookie of the Year. For most of these, if not all, Brandon is going to give us the general criteria, the landscape as to who normally wins this award. And Brandon's going to lay that out right now, starting with Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I think the historic profile is important. It helps us narrow the field sometimes. So for Offensive Rookie of the Year, we love quarterbacks here. Quarterbacks have won 4 of the last 8, 7 of 14, 10 of 20, like consistently 50%. Look, we saw the draft. This is the year of the quarterback. 6 of the top 12 picks were quarterbacks. I think we probably want a quarterback here. Only 4 of the last 14 winners here won 10 or more games. You don't need to win games to win Rookie of the Year. Now, if you're a quarterback going 500 or better, you're golden. We're probably giving it to you. But over half of our winners the last 14 years finished sub 500. So we don't need wins. We need stats. Quarterback, 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. That's a pretty good measure. Running back, a receiver, you need a big year. You need like 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns on average. And a key thing here, and this will be the case with both Rookie of the Year, it matters where you got drafted.
Yep.
17 of the last 20 Rookies of the Year, first round picks. 16 of the last 20, top 12 picks. That narrows the field dramatically. Now, a little bit less this year because literally the whole top 12 was on offense. We've got a few more choices there. But even really, 40% were just top 3 picks in the last 2 decades. So we want someone near the top. It makes sense, right? Like, these are the best guys. You're probably getting playing time right away. One other thing, speaking of playing time, 11 out of 13 winners in the last 13 have played at least 15 games. So be careful. We got guys like Drake May not starting yet. You may want to bet them, but if they don't get into the lineup really quickly here, history has not really been in their favor. And then one important note, too. This will be different in other awards, but for Offensive Rookie of the Year, favorites do not tend to win here, actually. Last decade, only 2 guys with odds shorter than plus 800 at the start of the season won the award. So that's interesting because we got a big favorite this year.
Yeah, Caleb Williams, your favorite at plus 120, number 1 overall pick, of course. And Jaden Daniels files in next at plus 600. The receiver component in this rookie class is fascinating. As you said, the first 12 picks were all on offense, but you've got Malik Neighbors, Giants, Marvin Harrison Jr., Cardinals, Roma Dunze. I know he's in a crowded receiving room with Caleb Williams. Those two kind of go hand in hand. So that one's a tough one to kind of pick apart and decipher. So there's your field. And like you said, good notes there on Drake May. We know Bo Nix is going to start. McCarthy's out for the year. Michael Penix will be on the bench behind Kirk Cousins. It wasn't long ago, though, when going back to the draft, when Penix was one of your long shots, and that number has shortened going back way back now after the draft. Brandon came on and gave his whiplash picks on the awards market. So where are you at right now, leading into the week 1 slate? Your pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
So Caleb Williams, I think, is the right favorite, right? He is entering an offense where you've got 3 stud receivers, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze. You got Shane Waldron there to lead the offense. I think that's an even bigger addition than the receivers. Seattle is top 10 in DVOA passing the last 2 years with Geno Smith. And Geno put up about 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns. Like those are the right numbers here. And we can just get maybe a couple more touchdowns for Caleb Williams on the ground. That counts toward that number as well. And he's done that pretty well. It's a very easy narrative, right? We got the number 1 pick, push for 500 in a big market. You got the personality. Brendan, if he throws for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns this year, that would not just win Rookie of the Year in all likelihood. Those are Chicago Bears all-time franchise records.
Right.
No Bears quarterback has ever done either one of those things. Like, the narrative is obvious. However, the offensive line, not good at pass blocking. That, I think, is going to be an adjustment here. We've seen him in the preseason do the Mahomesian thing, right? We see him hold the ball, scramble around, try to hunt the big play. That looks great when it works. It also can turn to sacks and interceptions and mistakes. Start out the season against Denard Wilson's defense in Tennessee. That's a Baltimore defense style. Then DeMeco Ryans' defense with Houston. It's a tough start for a new rookie. I think Caleb Williams is the right favorite. However, he's not the right favorite to bet at plus 150. 40% implied. It's just way too short. I can't get behind putting my money on someone effectively Caleb Williams against the field in the deepest offensive rookie class. I can't get there. So what do you think about Caleb Williams? Is he the right favorite to you? Is plus 140 too much?
I think when you consider the division he plays in, so no, I think you're onto it. I think 40% implied does not make a whole lot of sense for Caleb Williams. They also, and this is a theme for all of these young quarterbacks, in theory, when you're drafting that high, you're on a bad team. We'll do this again, and I should get this out there. Brandon's building the portfolio for all of these awards. So when we get to week 8, week 9, maybe even earlier, there are going to be opportunities to bet these award markets to capitalize. Something I think about with quarterback, and Brock Purdy was someone we discussed last year for sure, or maybe going back a few years now. The national TV windows. These quarterbacks don't have those windows to capitalize on those spots. So that kind of fits under that entire umbrella. But you're on it, though. If Caleb Williams has even just a slightly above average year, he's the biggest star in Chicago. He's the biggest star in Chicago. It's him and Angel Reese right now. Caleb Williams has a chance to overtake as the best athlete in Chicago sports since Michael. That's not crazy to say, I think.
So again, he is the right favorite, but he is not the guy you should be betting because of the odds. So you mentioned the other guys here. Harrison, Neighbors, I think you're buying peak hype, peak value here. We saw them both be awesome in the preseason. Like, Neighbors is going to be in a run-heavy offense. Daniel Jones, that's not a guy I want to invest in. That's not a situation I want to invest in. Harrison Jr., I like that better. I like Drew Petzing's offense. He's getting drafted in fantasy football as a top 10 receiver right now. Like, that's just too much hype for a guy that has yet to play. Don't forget, Puka Nacua last year, 105 catches, almost 1,500 yards, didn't win. He got 2 out of 50 first-place votes because we just wanted to give it to a quarterback. So I think you're the quarterback. I don't need Drake May. He's not playing yet. No offensive line. Like, maybe later if the number gets long. I certainly don't need to bet Bo Nix. Captain check down, noodle arm. If he takes my money, go. Congratulations, sir. You may have it.
Well,
the guy that I want.
And doesn't that become more about Peyton and his case for coach of the year, right? I mean,
it's like the joystick quarterback, right?
Yes, right.
So to me, it's those top two. It's Caleb Williams, it's Jaden Daniels, and I like Jaden Daniels. This is my pick. It's plus 600 Jaden Daniels. I think that he is a very similar case to Caleb Williams. Now, look, the situation's worse. The offensive line is worse, maybe bottom of the league. The weapons are worse. Our man Cliff Kingsbury is worse than Shane Waldron. That's for dang sure at running the offense. But Cliff Kingsbury was the offensive coordinator when Kyler Murray won Rookie of the Year. Kingsbury was a coordinator for top 10 fantasy season 3 times for Kyler. So we know Jaden Daniels is going to run. We want stats. I don't really care if Jaden Daniels is good. I just want numbers. Last 3 seasons at LSU and elsewhere, he averaged 70 yards a game rushing. Last year, Jaden Daniels averaged 95 yards a game running. Last 8 games, 118 yards a game. So we have a real shot here to get to like 700 yards. That's 50 yards a game, 14 games. We don't need a whole season of that. We could get to 1,000 yards. Only 3 quarterbacks ever have done that. Even you add in, 200 passing yards and a touchdown a game. That doesn't seem like much. You basically just created a Lamar Jackson season. Those are the Lamar Jackson stats, and that is a 2-time MVP. So I like Daniels. He is a health risk with his running style. He's not going to win a lot of games, so we don't get that upside. That's why I would prefer Caleb Williams straight up. We're not betting straight up. We got to take the odds. I get a 4x payout on Jane Daniels versus Caleb Williams. So again, don't love either favorite here because we don't want to invest too much in the favorites at the award. But Jane Daniels, he's the guy for me, plus 600 Rookie of the Year.
Okay. Yeah, I think, and we've talked about the Commanders' schedule in the early part of the season on several episodes. Some of the fronts they're facing early in the year are daunting. So how he adjusts week to week early in the year, super important. A couple of long shots for this category, Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, so if you want a long shot, you want a running back because only Dak Prescott and Anquan Bolden have won from outside the first round Rookie of the Year in the last 3 decades. Running backs can do it, though. Running backs are just opportunities. So I'll got 2 running backs for you. Blake Corum from the Rams, 80-1 odds. I honestly thought his odds would be way shorter than this after a lot of the preseason buzz. The big news this week, Kyren Williams is returning punts. Oh no, what if he gets hurt? What are they doing? It's probably nothing. But what's not nothing? What if Corum is actually going to be the lead running back and Kyren is maybe more of a guy that they use as a receiver, as a punt returner? The Rams have an awesome interior offensive line. They run duo so well. This is the Sean McVay theme. They have been awesome running the ball. Corum is perfect at that, just running, taking what's there. If he gets the usage, it's a great fit. And then my real long shot, longest shot on this pod today, Kamani Vidal of the Chargers, 250-1. It's situation. Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman. I know you are running the football, Los Angeles Chargers. You got Joe Alt, top 5 tackle, possibly top tackle duo with Rashawn Slater. Kamani Vidal is behind Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, like the leftovers of leftovers from the Ravens. Now, I know those are Roman's guys, but maybe Vidal will be Roman's guys. A pretty similar style, 1,661 yards, 14 scores at Troy last season. I don't even know who this dude is. He's a running back in the Chargers. I'll take him at 250-1. That's it.
Injury history, too, with those 2 running backs, Edwards and Dobbins. Just disposable razors, right? And maybe you catch lightning in a bottle with Vidal. Excellent. A little bit of a longer category with offense and the receivers. I think it was worth spending time on. This award you've been consistent on in terms of how you find the correct profile. And correct me if I'm wrong, the profile is pretty short. It's not a long profile. It's way shorter than Offensive Rookie of the Year. That would be Defensive Rookie of the Year. Last year, best bet on this podcast, Will Anderson of the Texans at plus 500, a multi-unit bet from Brandon. We also discussed on the Best Bets pod, which will be coming out every Friday morning during the season. We discussed late in the year, I think it was the first week, second week of December, Jalen Carter had that strip fumble return for a touchdown. But ever since his playing time went down, the Eagles crumbled, and here come the Texans. Will Anderson, 25-1, was a live play during the season. So it's obviously not Will this year. Who stands out with, again, you mentioned it, not a whole lot of defense drafted at the top in the NFL draft. So where are we finding the best value for Defensive Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, so I'll start with the profile. This is one where you do want the favorite. 8 of our last 12 winners started plus 900 or shorter. So that's why we wanted Will Anderson last year. We're going to look at only favorites. I got no long shots here. You know me, I love my long shot. So if I have no long shot, you know we want favorites. We want a pass rusher. 7 of our last 10 winners had at least 7 sacks. This is just flash. We just need some flash plays. Give me a flash play. You mentioned the fumble recovery. Will Anderson had 7 sacks last year. Give me flash. And again, give me draft position. 21 out of the last 24 this century, Defensive Rookie of the Year, first-round picks. 20 of them, top 15. Hey, Brendan, we only have 1 top 15 defender this year, so that's a little bit short there. I'm going to count like a few guys after that, but that's really cutting it short. 10 out of 24, just top 5 picks there. So there's not a lot of options here. We don't need to win games. We actually like if we join bad defenses. Our last 7 guys that won this award joined a bottom 6 team by points per game allowed and leapt into the top 11. So that's Washington, Arizona, Philly, Carolina, Indy, and Denver. And one of those two teams is, we've got co-favorites here. So I think really we need to talk about the co-favorites. Don't you think, Brendan?
I would agree. Latu out of Indianapolis, right around plus 400, and then Dallas Turner of the Minnesota Vikings, plus 450. Big drop-off to Jared Verse of the Los Angeles Rams. It's a good point. You don't necessarily... Now, it worked out for Will Anderson, right? Winning team, won the division. Certainly helped, I think, for the Stroud argument as well. It winded their sails to get voters to be even more convinced a winning program after the year the Texans had back in 2022. But I think for these two, I mean, Indianapolis could be good in the South. Who knows? And with Minnesota, seeing that Sam Darnold's their quarterback for the foreseeable future, who knows? Offensively, really fun division. So who do you come away with here? I mean, if you're telling me it's the favorites, Latu or Turner, who is it?
Yeah, I wouldn't even mind, honestly, if you just take both of these guys and just be done for the year. To your point on winning, 8 of our last 14 rookies of the year were 500 or worse, but 5 of the last 7 did win at least 10 games. So maybe we do prefer winning now. You got to keep an eye on these trends as they develop. I like Dallas Turner, plus 450. I'm going to start with Latu and why I'm not picking him. I think he has a very strong case. He's the top defender on the board. He's our only top 15 pick. We love that. He's on a great D-line, too. He's going to not necessarily get a lot of double teams because you got Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, great tackles, Kwity Paye. It's a good pick. He had 13 and 10.5 sacks. He gets a lot of pressures in college. I think he'll be good. Dallas Turner is basically even odds, depending on your book, with Latu. Dallas Turner was supposed to be the top pick in the draft defensively. He's a top pass rusher. He's only the 3rd defender. He's number 17. I'm going to count that as our top 15, given the way the draft played out this year. You mentioned Will Anderson. That's our guy. This is a very similar profile. If you look at StatsBomb, really similar on what their strengths and weaknesses are. Will is a better run defender. I think that's why Dallas Turner slipped a little bit. But I get some deja vu here, right? We got last year, Houston takes the franchise quarterback and then trades a whole bunch of stuff to go up and get their defensive-minded coach, a star pass rusher, who they then play next to Jonathan Grenard all season, and he wins Rookie of the Year. So Minnesota, franchise quarterback. I certainly hope as a Vikings fan, they trade a bunch of stuff. They go get Dallas Turner, former Alabama player. They play him next to who? Jonathan Grenard, who Minnesota signed this offseason. Why not go ahead and win Defensive Rookie of the Year as well? Now, I think Latu slightly fits my profile better, but here's my tiebreaker. Brian Flores. Brian Flores had 348 blitzes last year, 21% higher than the next closest team. Now, remember, we want sacks. We want flash plays. So, Dallas Turner, we did night of the draft. I got him at plus 750. I still like him at plus 450, slightly over Latu here. I think he is the better play.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up Flores because I think since he's left New England, he's turned loose a bit, right? As far as like letting guys go after the quarterback a little bit more. They can freelance a little bit more, which freelancing wasn't allowed in New England during the dynasty. Okay. There's Defensive Rookie of the Year. This next one fascinates me because just to kind of set the scene, folks, think of how many starting quarterbacks got hurt last year in the National Football League and the amount of quarterbacks we had to see play. And it oftentimes may have pissed us off and ruined our viewing experience on Sunday night, Monday night, those standalone games especially, when one of the quarterbacks just absolutely stunk. But it does set up for a fascinating comeback player of the year discussion. Brandon did add Joe Flacco, which I forgot you did that mid-season, 250 to 1 last year. Of course, the Damar Hamlin thing, I think it's a sensitive subject, but that was certainly the favorite going into the season for reasons I think most of you know. But I'm interested, Brandon. This is a year with, and I want to get the names out there now just to remind the audience. Aaron Rodgers got hurt 4 plays into the season last year. Joe Burrow, early season injury. Kirk Cousins, Achilles. He's not even on the Vikings anymore. Different place, signing a big contract. And then Anthony Richardson, of course, one of the marquee first-round quarterbacks coming out of the draft. I mean, and that, it really doesn't sound... I mean, Daniel Jones was hurt last year. If the Giants have any sort of hope, and I know this NFL Hard Knocks thing doesn't look really good for Daniel Jones. They're crapping all over him there in New York. But, I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of quarterbacks that are coming back from injury. So set us up with the profile, and I'm curious as to what this kind of field, how it factors into your thinking.
Yeah, look, the profile is pretty easy here, right? We want a guy that is a quarterback on a winning team recovering from a major injury. 11 of our last 15 winners are quarterbacks. Notably, we've not had a running back winner here since 2001. I think that makes sense. Running backs, you get your big injury, you might never be back again. Like, you might never reach that level again. So be careful with your running backs. You love a quarterback here. 14 of those 15 made the playoffs. So you need to win. You can't just come back and like exist on a team somewhere. You got to actually make a winning impact. And an important note for this year, because of our guy Joe Flacco, the voters have been specifically instructed this year. This is an award for comeback from, quote, injury or illness. No more Joe Flacco coming back from your couch. No more Geno Smith coming back from sucking. That's the last two winners. Right. So be careful. Sam Darnold, he's pretty high on the odds here. Sam Darnold ain't hurt. Sam Darnold just stinks and got a new chance. Russell Wilson, he's not really been hurt lately. Bryce Young only missed one game last year. You don't get to come back from sucking. You got to come back from an injury. And I think
some do suck and get hurt.
Sure, of course. Yeah, well, you can come back from both things.
Yes.
But I think especially, I think folks, again, sensitive subject, I think folks feel a little bit guilty about not giving this to Damar Hamlin last year. So I think we're going to get a pretty straightforward look here. So I think it's just one of those guys you mentioned. I don't know about Anthony Richardson. Like, he barely even played yet. You can really come back when you have barely been a professional. So I think Rodgers, Burrow, and Kirk Cousins, those are three very strong candidates. We know these guys. We know who they are. They all make sense. Kirk, I'm going to rule out because he's got the same Achilles injury that Rodgers had, but his is more recent. That's bad. His is on his plant foot. That's bad. And his team is worse. So that's bad. So I'm ruling Kirk Cousins out. Joe Burrow, I think, makes more sense.
Is his team worse?
What's that?
Is his team worse?
You better believe it, because we're going to be talking about the Jets a lot.
This Jets, I mean, I know where you're going with this, but man, you are in on the Jets. I mean, the Falcons. The Falcons have loaded up, Brandon. Like, they've finally got a guy who can throw the ball. I understand the concern, but
I think the Falcons are a 500 team in a bad division.
They have the same win total. They both have 9.5 win totals.
That's great. We're going to make a lot of money off of it, Brandon.
All right,
Joe Burrow, calf injury, wrist injury, like, these are not as exciting injuries to come back from. And this is a narrative award. It matters that you're coming back from a wrist ligament injury. Here's the thing. Joe Burrow won Comeback Player of the Year in 2021. We don't get repeat winners here. We have one ever. Do you know, Brandon, can you think off the top of your head, from 2006 and 2008 is our only repeat Comeback Player of the Year. He played on two teams in the division with your favorite. Do you know who it is?
He played
on the Jets in 2006 and the Dolphins in 2008.
Fitzpatrick.
No, it is Chad Pennington.
Chad
Pennington came back from a rotator cuff injury in 2006, won it with the Jets, and then 2 years later came back the way that we're not coming back anymore. He came back from a trade. He got dumped. He got traded to the division Dolphins, and they won 10 games more. So he won again. I think, to me, I was ready to go Rodgers, Burrow together here. I think Burrow's not going to win this a second time. He came back from a bigger injury before. I think it's Rodgers. Look, 40-year-old coming off an Achilles tear, playing in the New York media hype, on a playoff contender. Come on, like what easier comeback player of the year can you get than that? Plus 200. I think he's the pick here. However, this will not be the last you hear from me on Aaron Rodgers on this podcast.
Okay. I just thought you snuck that in there, that Kirk Cousins' team is worse than you can't put the Jets in that kind of sentence yet until we actually see it happen, that they're not as bad as the Falcons, because they're both pretty stinky overall franchises.
I can and will.
Okay. But I think fair enough, but you snuck that in there like I wouldn't catch that. But I just pumped the brakes a little bit. But hey, these are your awards and your picks, so I'll just get out of the way. Quick reminder, if you aren't an Action Pro subscriber, you are missing out. Find the best values in NFL player props plus spread and total projection edges from Sean Kerner and his entire Action Analytics team. Plus, this season, only pro subscribers get expert picks and expert pick alerts in real time from our team of experts, including our own Brandon Anderson, who's here, Stuckey, Chris Raybon, and the whole crew across every sport. Go to actionnetwork.com/pricing right now and use the promo code POD20, POD20, to get $20 off your pro subscription, or Just follow the link in this episode description. It will take you right there. All right, on to Offensive Player of the Year. Spend a couple minutes on the background. Last year, Joe Gallant, who did this pod with us, he's the touchdown better. He did our exotics pod with us going back to last week. He actually nailed two of these the last 2 years. He had Christian McCaffrey last year at 14-1 and Justin Jefferson going back to 2022 at 15-1. So Brandon, give us the profile on who wins Offensive Player of the Year. It gets a little tricky, right? It's not just quarterback per se.
It's definitely not just quarterback. It actually is kind of filtered through the positions. We'll come back to that, but really what you want here is just outlier stats. With one exception, you need crazy outlier stats, but you need to win too, which I think is important here. So the stats. Quarterbacks last decade, average of 4,600 yards, 44 touchdowns for Offensive Player of the Year. We're not talking about a good season. This is like you won your fantasy league because this guy's on your team sort of season. Running back, last 10 years, if you won, 2,000 scrimmage yards, 14 touchdowns. That's the average. Receivers, here's your average season. 140 catches, 1,800 yards, 11 scores. So I don't love to bet this one preseason right now. We're shooting at nothing. Like, how do I know what the outlier stats are for these guys until we start getting some stats? So I have a few guys here, but to me, this is one to bet a little safer on and play and add more to later. So just setting up that way. And one note too, so I mentioned the winners. 10 straight Offensive Player of the Years have won 10 games or more. All but one, 11 games or more. They're averaging 12 wins. So it's not just amazing stats. You do have to win. Now, those things make sense together. If you're that good or putting up these sort of numbers, you're probably going to win some games too. But I think it's important to marry the crazy stats, but also with the winner. And then the last thing is, we often talk about this award like, oh, well, whoever doesn't win MVP, this is a consolation prize for them. That's not necessarily true for quarterbacks. The last 4 Offensive Player of the Year quarterbacks also won MVP. So this is not necessarily like, well, who could win MVP, but not quite, so I'll give them this award. Maybe running back and receiver. To me, this award has become quarterbacks are for MVPs. Let's let a running back or receiver be the Offensive Player of the Year, and I think that's where we look here now.
Yeah, it feels a lot like how Netflix comes out with quarterback, and then the receivers are like, we matter too, so give us our own show. And that's what this kind of award feels like. It's kind of the same thing. All right, sure, we'll give you the receiver, Doc, and we'll talk about all you divas and all the prep you put into it. It actually was a really compelling TV show, to be honest. Okay, so here's what we're working with here as far as a field is concerned. Tyreek Hill is your favorite at plus 750. McCaffrey down to plus 950 in comparison. Now, I know injury concerns, but getting to 14-1 price last year, pretty good. Newly paid CeeDee Lamb, 11-1. Jamar Chase, who knows? Is he asking for a contract soon? 12-1. Justin Jefferson, 12-1. Bijan Robinson at 16-1. New offensive scheme. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 16-1. Breece Hall, 16-1. There's a whole lot jumbled there. There's a lot of similar pricing. So who emerges? Are we going to get 1 pick, 2 picks? What do you got?
So let me first start by, I got Jill's pick for you here. He's our 2-time defending champ. He's beaten me both years on this one, so I'm going to give his pick out for him. Jamar Chase, 12-1. That's his pick here. That's not mine. I like it. He could have a big season. I don't want McCaffrey or Justin Jefferson. We have not had a repeat winner on this award. And I don't mean like back-to-back. I mean ever winning a second time since Marshall Faulk, 2001. Jefferson won already. McCaffrey won already. Again, the whole point is crazy outlier stats. Once you do it once, it's not an outlier anymore. You got to just be that awesome again. So I'm ruling them out. I'm going to rule out Bijan and Breece. I don't want a running back here. I'd rather have Bijan than Breece Hall. Running backs won 96 to 2003 every single year. Then the next decade, 7 out of the 10 went to quarterbacks. I think it's a receivers award now. 3 of our last 5 winners here have been receivers after no receivers since Jerry Rice, 1993. So I've ruled out most of the names. I have 2 receivers left. It's kind of chalky. But again, Jill's beating me here. I got to catch up. I'm going to play 2 receivers here. I'm going to play his guy, CeeDee Lamb, who had 140 catches, 1,750 yards last year. And if you just start at week 6 forward and pace out over the season, when he kind of made that leap mid-season, he paces to almost 2,000 yards on 156 catches. He scored a touchdown at least once in 9 of the last 11 games. He would be my 1 pick if I had to make one, but I can't not include Tyreek Hill. My man has 1,700 yards, 2 straight years. Miami is my number 1 offense. Tyreek has been top 4 offensive player of the year twice already. I frankly think Tyreek should have won one already, and I kind of think CD should have won it last year. So I just have to pick the guys that I know are going to produce and haven't won this yet. Tyreek plus 750, CD plus 1,100. I play those two together. I get them at plus 400. So I think that's a good position to start here. Gives me some options to have almost certainly one guy in the mix, and then we can add on a little bit later, and I get a couple long shots as well.
I love those two as well, because I think the perception too is, as you've hit on, like perception matters. What are the voters thinking? I think these two particular players, Hill and Lamb, elevate the quarterback. Now Hill more so than Lamb, because I think there's a general respect for Dak Prescott since he was drafted, 4th round pick, has worn the star and the helmet pretty respectively, considering the sideshow that is the Dallas Cowboys oftentimes off the field. But newly paid. And also, you mentioned it, you want to be on a winning team. These teams are in that 9.5, 10.5 win range where you're going to be in the hunt you're going to be in impact games against really good, Dak and CD have to play against Philadelphia. Those are often national TV spots for sure. And then also, of course, the AFC East with the Jets and the Bills. That's the competition for Miami. So I like those two looks for sure. Tyreek being the favorite and CeeDee Lamb now happy and paid.
That's right.
Long shots, please. What do you got?
Yeah,
Offensive player of the year.
Couple guys for offensive player of the year, long shot. Another Jet here for you. I think Breece Hall is the wrong Jet to be favored. I like Garrett Wilson better. 30-1 for Garrett Wilson. Aaron Rodgers loves to lock onto his guy, and I think his guy is going to be Garrett Wilson. We actually saw it in the preseason last year. They had pretty good chemistry. They had a nice back shoulder touchdown. Devontae Adams, his last season with Aaron Rodgers, 123 catches, 1,550 yards, and 11 scores. The year before that, 18 scores. We've seen an Aaron Rodgers receiver put up huge numbers. I like that one. And in that division, I like Achane at Miami. I think he is a fantasy league winner this year, potentially. This guy averaged 7.8 yards a carry as a rookie. So even if that drops to a more normal number, you're going to get like 13 carries a game, 6.5 yards a carry. You get to 1,300 plus yards. You add some receiving yards. He's a dual threat, and you can get some touchdowns. You can bust a long play. If you're going way off the board, 60-1, he's my favorite super long shot here for just a possible league winner type guy.
I love that dude, Achane. I think Mostert's got injury history as well. Yep. Achane definitely got some work early in the season. Love that look as well at 60-1. Excellent. There's your offensive player of the year breakdown. On to defensive player of the year. We'll spend a couple minutes on this. Last season, this very episode, same time of year we recorded, Brandon hit on Myles Garrett at plus 800 as one of 3 players that he played last year. So you hit on Garrett. I'm curious who your darlings might be this year. But first, let's get the profile.
Yeah, so again, defense, you want the favorites. This is the most predictable NFL award, I think. And you want pass rushers. 8 of our last 10 defensive player of the years had 11 sacks or more. So that is a pretty high bar. Average at 16.5 sacks for those guys. You want guys that have been here before. We want guys who are recognizable. Like, guys don't come out of nowhere and win this award. So 6 of our last 12 winners, half of them got at least one first place vote the year before. That's a very narrow field. There's 4 guys. It's Myles Garrett. It's TJ Watt. It's Parsons in Dallas. And it's Deron Bland in Dallas. But he's out because he's injured right now. So it's really 3 guys left there. Another thing, too, 10 straight winners in this award have been anywhere between age 25 and 29. The last guy 30 years or older was Charles Woodson in 2009. So 30 is a bad number, especially this year. Listen to some guys who turned 30 this year. Chris Jones, incredible defender for the Chiefs. Danielle Hunter, big signing in Houston. I've seen him given out for this award. Hassan Reddick, if he plays this season. And importantly, TJ Watt. On the other end of the age spectrum, Aiden Hutchinson, not quite in this age range yet. Will Anderson and Jalen Carter, not quite there. So it's a pretty narrow field here. It's not necessarily a team award. The guys over the last decade have averaged 11th in points per game defensively, 9th in DVOA. Like, that's good, but it's not like you have to be, like in the NBA, you got to be in like a top 3 defense to win this award. Not so in the NFL. You just need a lot of sacks, really. They do all win 9 games or more. Every one of the last decade has average 11 wins. So it is a team award in that you need to win, but mostly you just need to be a really good defensive player that we all know exists, and then we just pick you to win. Like, this is how awards should go, Brendan. We're like, who's the best defensive player? Hey, let's let you win the award. So that's why I like this one. It's easy to predict.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense why TJ Watt's name is always here every freaking year because of the Tomlin 500 season thing that's been going on for a while now. It's also just seeing all these pass rushers at the top speaks to where the league is and where the priorities lie when you build your team, whether it be the draft or free agency. You got to get the quarterback right, got to get the line play right, got to get weapons. Okay, defensively, let's go get to the other quarterback, and then we'll worry about the secondary later because it's an offensive league now. So we'll allow a receiver to have a big night. Can we get to the quarterback and throw him off his step? So it makes sense why that's your historical context makes a lot of sense as to why these guys, it's always like TJ Watt, Myles Garrett at the top of the board. They are, those two are not the favorite though. Micah Parsons, your favorite at plus 600, Watt at plus 700, Garrett plus 800, Max Crosby of the Raiders at 10-1, and Nick Bosa 10-1. So full disclosure, folks, I see the doc. I see how Brandon puts these in, and we get this right before we start. And explain this to me, how you're going to go about picking this.
Yeah, I need you to listen up closely, dear listener, because this is my favorite pick on the podcast. This is the one you need to bet, but it's complicated. So I'm gonna walk you through it. So start with those 5 guys, and I'm like, oh man, that's the right 5, even mostly in the right order. Like that, how do we find some advantage for us if these are the right 5 guys? Well, it turns out there's advantage on all of these guys because the odds are priced incorrectly because favorites win this award. So last year, here's what we did on the pod. You said that we won with Myles Garrett. That's true. I also gave out TJ Watt and I gave out Micah Parsons. We bet all 3 of them. Those 3 were our bet. That was just those 3. They finished first, second, and third. It's so easy. It's so easy to just pick the favorites on this award. We bet a unit each. Garrett was plus 800. We finished plus 6 units. We're doing it again. Slight change here. There's 5 guys you just mentioned. Myles Garrett, 12 sacks 4 years in a row at least. He's my number 1 defending winner. We love repeat winners here. He's in. I need him. Micah Parsons. If I only got one guy, he's probably the guy. Year 4, age 25. That is a bullseye on this award. Top 3 defensive player of the year, all 3 seasons he's played in the league. I got to have him. Nick Bosa, 14.8 sacks a year the last 3. He's a little bit down last year, but I like Nick Sorensen, the new DC there. I want him in my position. He's a good age range. I need him. TJ Watt, now this is tricky. I mentioned him because he turned 30 this year, but TJ Watt has led the league in sacks 3 of the last 4 seasons, and he was hurt the other year. He averages a sack a game since his rookie season. He's finished top 3 in this award 4 out of 5 years. He was hurt the other year. All-time players get their own rules sometimes on these. I need TJ Watt. I've got 4 guys already. I don't need Max Crosby. Sorry, Raiders fans. I need wins. I don't need to bet on the Raiders to win 9 games and make the playoffs. I just don't need them there. The Raiders are my 12th seed in the AFC.
He seems more interested in having a cigar with Antonio Pierce after winning their 4th game of the season in December. Yeah,
great player. Love him. But here's the position, Brendan. Again, this is my favorite pick on the podcast. I'm taking 4 dudes. I want Parsons and Watt and Garrett and Nick Bosa. I'm playing all 4. And to be clear, a full unit or more if you like on each one of these guys. I'm playing all 4 together at implied odds at the numbers is plus 114. So let me translate for you. You're giving me Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, and Nick Bosa. You get the field and I get plus odds? No, these 4 guys are like 80 or 90% likely to win this award. I don't need the field. I don't need Max Crosby. I don't need any other guys. This, quite frankly, is how I am funding my other futures by just, it's like mutual funds. Just put some money in and just like let it grow later on. One of these dudes is going to stay healthy enough to win. A couple others will contend in the award. This is the award that is the safest pick on the draft. Parsons, Watt, Garrett, Bosa. Give me all 4 defensive player of the year.
Love it. That's great. That's great handicapping and a great explanation. 4 brothers, NFL Awards edition.
That's right.
For Brandon Anderson, defensive player of the year. Okay, this one might piss Brandon off because of what happened last year. Coach of the year. Brandon last season had DeMeco Ryans. I forget where I was. Definitely was doing something I shouldn't have been doing, which was driving. I had a seatbelt on. I have a little magnet in my car streaming the NFL awards because of Will Anderson. But then I'm like, wait a minute. Brandon also gave out D'Amico Ryans. We got a shot here. He lost by 1 vote. Kevin Stefanski, right? Won the award?
Yeah. In fact, he didn't lose by a vote. He tied Kevin Stefanski. They tied in totals, but he lost the tiebreaker by 1 vote.
What was the tiebreaker? Do you remember?
First place votes. Stefanski had 1 extra first place vote. D'Amico had more votes overall and tied on the down ballot. We lost. But look. We won Joe Flacco 250-1 like minutes later. It's fine. You were irresponsibly driving. I was responsibly not watching the awards because my mom had open heart surgery that day. So I was sitting with her until my phone started exploding with D'Amico responses and then Joe Flacco responses. So it was a night for both of us on that day. It's fine. D'Amico won us plenty of other stuff with Texans Island. We can let this one go.
Okay. And it's a good reminder that there are other important things in life, but we're all still kind of mad about it, which is fair. But we moved on. New season, right? So, okay. D'Amico Ryans, Shane Steichen was in the mix as well. I think Sean Payton caught a little wind there at the end as well in Denver. And of course, it came down to Stefanski winning it. So give us the profile.
Yeah, obviously you need to win. You need to average 12 wins over the last decade. You need at least 11. All but 1 had that many. But this is a narrative award. So how do we build narrative? You need to win more than last year and more than expected. So more than last year. Last decade, average improvement from 6.9 wins the previous year to 12.1 the following year. So at least 8 of the 10 have won at least 4 more games. 7 of the 10 started in that like 7 to 10 win range. So a team that was around 500 last year wins an average of 5 more games this season. Now you're in the playoffs. So that's the start. But sometimes we know who that team is. So the over-under matters here also. These coaches are beating their over-under expectation by over 4 wins also since 2010. Now I have to say, the last 2 years in a row have broken this trend. Brian Daboll, only two wins over the total. Stefanski, our man who stole the award last year, only 1.5 over the total. Now look, he had narrative. They started 5 different quarterbacks. I get it. But 9 of our last 10 here, coaches of the year, started at the win total of 7.5 to 9.5. A very narrow, like, we think you're a 500 team. Oh, you're not. You're a 12-win team. Congratulations. You're the coach of the year. And the last thing, we love our first-year coaches. 4 of our 7 winners are first-year guys. 6 of the last 13, around 50%. And we only have like 6 or 7 first-year coaches, I think. So that helps to narrow the field as well. Very open field here for this award.
Yeah, so Jim Harbaugh is the favorite. He wouldn't be considered a first-year coach. It's first year in Los Angeles. This is
he would. First year on a new team is what I mean by that. So that's still
okay. Good call out. Okay, very good. Yeah, that makes sense. First year on a new team because it's right starting fresh. Can you get this thing back on the track? That makes sense. And I guess that kind of alludes to like Dan Quinn was a head coach in Atlanta, right? And coordinator job, a couple years. Now he's the head man in Washington. Just using another example. Matt Eberflus of the Chicago Bears. Very public guy these days with the new fresh haircut. Hard Knocks Bears. Raheem Morris in Atlanta at 12-1. Matt LaFleur in Green Bay at 13-1. D'Amico Ryans is there. Shane Steichen at 14-1. So there you go. There are your favorites. So Harbaugh and Eberflus both at 10-1. Brandon's pick for Coach of the Year for this year is who?
Yeah, so I'm going to rule out a couple guys for you just to help direct where you're looking. This is a tough one, right? We got 30 options. I don't need Eberflus. If the Bears are good, just bet Caleb Williams. I know it's a short number. I know we said not to, but if the Bears are good, he's who wins an award. Don't bet D'Amico. I know everybody loves the Texans this year.
And real quick, I know just to piggyback off your point there, Eberflus is the defensive mind on that staff. Like I think offensive coaches matter too, depending when you're comparing markets, right? If Caleb Williams is good, they're going to give credit to Waldron and the offensive staff, and Eberflus is more so of a passenger in their defense.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that generally, except I would also argue that Stefanski just won because his defense, led by Jim Schwartz, won him the award a year ago. So I'm a little still stung by that one.
And CJ Stroud was really good last year, and I think D'Amico Ryans is going to you're going to get some credit for that too, having the right program.
Yeah,
okay, fair enough. Yep,
yeah,
fair enough.
So I think it's a good point, but something to be careful with. this is not a year for D'Amico. They won 10 games. Their win total is 9.5. The bar is too high. The odds are not reflecting where Houston is at here. Dan Campbell, too good. You can't bet a team that already has a win total 10.5 or better. That's not the way to go. This is not just who's the best coach, like defensive player. That's not it. You need narrative. You need a first year. My guy, I have one pick here. It's Mike McDonald from Seattle, 14-1. We've talked about Seattle. We talked about them on our previous podcast. I love everything about what this team is doing. This is my number 5 defense heading into the season. I think McDonald is going to unleash Witherspoon, the sophomore cornerback. I think he's going to be the Cal Hamilton for this team. McDonald's been great, specifically scheming against McVay and Shanahan-style offenses. That's the division. I think that's why Seattle went out and got him. I love Dodson and Baker, the linebackers they brought in. I think that that's going to be big for them, the way that he had Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. I think those guys are going to try to be something similar to that. I love the offense, too. We get Ryan Grubb, also, the offensive coach, coming over from Washington. I love how that sets up for Geno, bombing to the receivers. Now, they did win 9 games last year. It's tough to replace a legend in Pete Carroll, but that also gives us some narrative boost. The win total is 7.5. That's right. That's the spot I like here. I'm also get a spot to fade the Rams. We talked about them. Maybe a chance to fade the Niners a little bit with a lot of just little things trickling in. The injuries starting to pile up. I like Seattle. I think this is a great way to bet on the Seahawks this year to win maybe 12 or more games. So Mike McDonald, 14-1 would be my pick here.
Yeah, but I think just I'm trying to make sense of your profile, right? Because the fact that they won 9 games, doesn't that not matter? Because Carroll's not the guy anymore. So it's a open slate. It's a new era, right? Does that matter or not? Like Gerard Mayo is now in for Bill Belichick.
I mean, it matters to me, a thinking voter. It does not matter to my blank slate profiles that are like 9 wins. That's a little much. So that's the only reason. But you're right. It should be a blank slate. And I think getting to that level again and better, hopefully, replacing a legend, that should be the narrative that we're looking for. So I think you can play that to our favor, but we just don't know if the voters will do it that way.
Right. I think there's a lot of window of opportunity if you're in the same division as San Francisco and Los Angeles, 2 very popular teams, fan bases everywhere. And McVay, the kind of attention he's had at the national level, and the Rams being in Los Angeles and the Niners just being in the mix the last half decade. If you score a couple wins against those teams, that's going to antennas go off, right? Antennas start to pop up in Seattle. Okay, like it. And your long shot for this.
Yeah, only a little bit longer. This is actually a team I don't love, but I think it's a good way to bet them in case I'm wrong. Brian Callahan of the Titans, 25-1. There's just a lot of avenues to go right here for the Titans. So they won 6 games last year, 6.5 win total. That is a bullseye. That's exactly the sort of team I'm looking for. Soft division, easy window here for them to things to go right, win that division just like the Texans did last year, just like the Jaguars did the previous year. So I don't love these things, but Will Levis, not a quarterback I like, but I might be wrong. He might be really good. He's got a huge arm. He also, even though they lost Derrick Henry, I think has a better offense this year. They got in Calvin Ridley. They got Tyler Boyd. They brought in Tony Pollard, who's healthy now. I think they gave him a lot of weapons.
Spears is good, too. That Spears dude behind
Spears is good. And don't forget, the bad offensive line brought in Brian Callahan's dad, Bill, the best O-line coach in the league, which I think also helps the offense a lot. On defense, they got a lot of dudes in. L'Jarius Sneed from the Chiefs. They just traded for Ernest Jones from the Rams. I don't know much about Denard Wilson, the new coordinator, but he comes over from Baltimore. He's got a lot of guys to work with on this unit that he picked. They changed out a lot of names here. This is not a team I like, but sometimes, Brendan, I bet a lot of futures. Sometimes you have to say, well, what if I'm wrong? Like last year on this podcast, I gave out Brock Purdy for MVP. I was not a Brock Purdy fan. I did not think he should be in that award, but what if I'm wrong about San Francisco? How would I be wrong? How would that go? I think if I'm wrong about Tennessee, a team I'm out on this year, this is a way to bet it and give myself kind of one out for them. 25-1. There's a lot of paths here where the Titans are the surprise team. And look, we're predicting a surprise. You might want to give yourself a few options. Surprises are surprising for a reason.
Our final award. We got about 10 minutes to get through MVP, which I think is it's a very square market. Is that fair? Like, I think everyone loves to bet MVP, right? Like, I mean, come on now. let's dive right in. We got like 10 minutes here, Brandon. So let's decipher MVP. Who wins this award typically?
So obviously we need a quarterback. We need a quarterback winner with good stats. That's it. We know what this is. 16 of the last 17 are quarterbacks. So you need a quarterback here. I don't even look at any other position. It is a team accomplishment. 13 out of those 16 quarterbacks were 1 seeds. All but one of them were top 2 seed. Those quarterbacks have averaged 14 win pace and at least 13 wins for 12 out of the 16. And that's before the 17 game up also. So it's a big number. You got to win a lot of games. You're averaging about 4,400 passing yards, about 40 touchdowns, including rushing. That matters because Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton in there. We love repeat winners, not back-to-back. We don't do a lot of back-to-back. But Brennan, 17 MVPs from quarterback, 14 of those 17 in our most recent group has been 5 dudes. Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Those 5 dudes have been MVP 14 of the last 17 seasons. We love to give to the same guys because guess what? That's why they're so valuable. So that's what we're looking at here in season. Keep an eye on the advanced metrics. Top 2 EPA, 9 of the last 11 winners. Top 2 EPA and completion over expected, 9 of the last 11. Now look, I have to comment briefly here. I am treating Lamar Jackson last year as an outlier to my system. He did not fit the profile. I have thoughts. You can read my tweets about them. I think it was a flawed field. Lamar was missing some of the numbers in the advanced metrics. Josh Allen had the interceptions, that problem, and he didn't get enough wins. Dak Prescott, not quite enough wins and failed in the marquee spots. Brock Purdy, we just kind of shrugged off because of Kyle Shanahan. There wasn't really a strong choice. I think actually Lamar was kind of the laziest choice on the board. He is the quarterback of the only 13-win team that really does fit the profile. We just picked a quarterback from the best team. So that's the setup. Patrick Mahomes is the obvious favorite here. And if you want to just be done, just pet Patrick Mahomes. That's fine. I'm good with that. Best player, best team. He's my number 1 overall seed. You got better receivers. He's the right favorite. I think this is double what his price should be. I think you want Mahomes in your portfolio. It easily makes sense. Now, last year was the worst year of his career in the regular season. Maybe that was just bad receivers. Maybe Travis Kelce's fallen off a little bit. Maybe they missed Eric Bieniemy a little bit. I will say this about Mahomes. They start Baltimore, then Cincinnati. They're breaking in a new left tackle. I don't think I need this now. With MVP, we got a long season. The narratives will fly. I think you'll want Mahomes in your portfolio if you're building it. If you want to make one bet now and never bet again, he might be your guy. But I don't need the plus 500 right now.
Good call out. That's a good call out with the schedule early in the year. I was just going to say something. Yeah, it almost feels like with this award too for quarterbacks, as you mentioned, 11 of 16 had won previously. It's almost like you're encapsulating it as a quarterback comeback player of the, meaning like, hey, it's kind of got some parallels to NBA MVP. I guess you've got to be at the top tier, but that doesn't mean you suck. You just might not be. You could be the 5th best guy that year, and have outstanding numbers. And the other thing too, you mentioned laziness as it pertains to last year. Purdy and Jackson went head to head on Christmas, big spot, and Purdy fell on his face. Right, he threw a ton of picks, and it made it. Now, did Jackson play great? No, he got short fields, and it worked out well because the Ravens defense balled out. Kind of made it easy, I think, for folks to say, well, Purdy was that bad that we're just going to elevate Jackson, if that makes sense. Okay, next here. So as you map this out, Allen, Stroud, Burrow are your next 3 guys, all in the AFC.
Yeah.
So I think it's 4 AFC quarterbacks are your favorites in this market. Now there's a drop off from Mahomes to Allen, Stroud, Burrow, and then it's NFC guys. Hurts at 14-1, Jordan Love 15-1, Brock Purdy 16-1, and then you've got guys in that plus 2,000 to plus 3,000 range: Lamar, Dak, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford. Where are you landing for your pick here?
So let me just talk through these tiers a little bit. That first tier, Allen, Stroud, Burrow, is all about 9 or 10-1 odds. I think Josh Allen, those odds are fine. I think you can bet Josh Allen. He is my number 2 quarterback. There's a really obvious narrative. Stephon Diggs is gone. We got nobody left. It's just Josh Allen doing everything. Top 2 fantasy quarterback 4 years in a row. The problem is the interceptions, 15, 18, 14 the last 3 years. and he always has a few of those clunker games. You get the wrong one at the wrong time. We saw what happened last year to Dak and to Purdy. I think you want Josh Allen in your portfolio, but I think you wait. Here's the schedule starting out. First 6 games, he goes at Miami, at Baltimore, at the Jets, and plays the Texans in that stretch. I think you wait, you get him later, but I do like the pick here. I do think there are value to the odds here. I have him about 15%, we're implied 10%. Now, in that tier with Josh Allen is Joe Burrow and CJ Stroud. I don't mind Burrow. I think his odds are a little inflated. CJ Stroud is the worst bet you can make on the board. CJ Stroud 10-1 is a terrible bet. Their offensive line is not good. They're overcommitted to the run game. I think defenses will adjust and take away the deep ball and force Stroud to go short and beat them under pressure. 2 things he has not been good at. And I think Houston has one of the toughest schedules in the league. They drew the AFC East this year. That's Dolphins and Jets and Bills. They drew the NFC North, 4 good teams. And compared to the division, every team gets 3 games that are different than everyone else in the division. Here are the 3 games the Texans got. The Chiefs and the Ravens, the other ones, division winners. And then their NFC division is the Cowboys. So their 3 variable games are Chiefs, Ravens, Cowboys. That is a rough draw. Do not bet CJ Stroud. Those are sucker odds. Hurts, Love, Purdy, the top NFC guys. Look, Hurts had his chance 2 years ago. Purdy had his chance last year. History says if you are like second or third in the odds 1 year, that's it. You had your shot. You had your outlier year. You probably don't get there again. So I can't get there. I would rather pick Jordan Love than these guys. He is my 4th most likely guy. That doesn't even show value here for me at plus 1,500 because I think MVP is a top-heavy field, even though it's not priced that way necessarily. Jordan Love last year, from week 11 forward, 6-2 record, on pace for 4,600 yards, 38 touchdowns, 2 picks. Here's the numbers for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay last MVP season. 4,100, 37 touchdowns, 4 picks. Jordan Love turned in Aaron Rodgers with 8 games to go last year. I think he's going to win MVP at some point. He was number 2 in the advanced metrics. I'm fine with him in your portfolio, but I am going to that next group down the board, and I got one guy for you this year. This is my favorite one guy pick of the podcast. I'm all in. Aaron Rodgers, MVP, 25-1. The narrative is so obvious. 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off the Achilles, leading the New York Jets back to the playoffs for the first time since 2010. Come on. It's just sitting there for us. We got 2 great weapons, Breece and Garrett. He got a way improved offensive line from bottom 7 to top 7 that, frankly, he's going to get credit for because the quarterback gets credit for stuff. He already has an elite defense. He already has elite special teams. So the rest of the team is going to help him win games. Team accomplishment, Brendan. The team has been good. They just needed O-line and quarterback. This is my number 1 roster in the NFL on paper. Now, on paper, you got to stay healthy. We might not stay healthy. We got a lot of question marks here, but I have them just barely ahead of the Chiefs and the 49ers on paper. Aaron Rodgers has had a winning record in 13 out of 16 seasons. He's won double-digit games 10 times. Last season in Green Bay, I know it was bad. He broke a thumb on his throwing hand. So I'm going to rule that out because the previous 2 years he won MVP. So his last 2 healthy seasons, he is the 2-time defending MVP. I know he's 40. Tom Brady had 5 good years left at age 40 still and was very much in the MVP mix a couple of those times. Aaron Rodgers in his career has had 10 healthy seasons. He's averaged winning 11 games and he won an MVP 4 out of the 10 times. Nearly half of his times he's had a healthy season, he's won MVP. 14 out of the last 17 MVPs go to the same 5 dudes. Aaron Rodgers is that dude. Monday night, week 1 at San Francisco. He hates San Francisco. They had the number 1 pick and they didn't take him. He loves playing the 49ers. Monday night, we're all watching. You kickstart against a team that might not be ready. Then Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota. Holy, easy schedule. The Jets are 5-0. Aaron Rodgers is back. He's the MVP leader. This dude has equal MVP odds right now to Jared Goff and Tua Tagovailoa. What are we doing? It's Aaron Rodgers. He's behind Brock Purdy. I am personally insulted. This is my favorite bet of the award season. Aaron Rodgers, 25-1 MVP.
Quickly, can he win this award if the Jets just make the playoffs and don't get a 1 or 2 seed? Because I know that fits your profile.
You need the top 2 seed, so you got to bet on them to make the playoffs. I do think the Bills and Dolphins dropped off a little bit this year, but yeah, you certainly need a top 2 seed here. Let me just give you 2 names as super long shot bombs here. Deshaun Watson, crazy, I know, 75-1, icky narrative, I got it. Great defense, great offensive line. They added Jerry Jeudy, they added Ken Dorsey on offense. The schedule is good early. Again, sort of like Rodgers, he could build some confidence, get going. Deshaun Watson, the last time we saw him healthy was good. I don't think it's in there anymore, but just in case I'm wrong, 75-1 is crazy. Geno Smith, 150-1. I gave you the Seattle case already. The thing Ryan Grubb does best, Brian Grubb, is sets up the quarterback to throw the deep balls to DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Geno Smith is the #1 deep ball thrower in the league by PFF. So if Seattle makes a push, if we're right about Mike McDonald and we get to a top 2 seed, Geno's got a pretty spicy narrative. Comeback guy that we kind of left for dead. He gets some long touchdowns in there to boost the stats. I don't think these guys are winning because Aaron Rodgers is going to win. But I think either Deshaun or Geno, I think we get a moment from one of them. I think they're in the conversation, quote unquote, at some point. So I don't mind nibbling them, but it's fine. Aaron's going to win anyway.
I hate you sometimes because that was so good and really compelling, and God, and you even put his name in Tom Brady, the same sentence as Tom Brady. I still don't disagree with a lot of it. Okay, all right. Let's wrap it up, Brandon. Quick, rapid fire from all that we just discussed. Really good stuff. Best bets: Aaron Rodgers at 25-1 MVP, and then the other 2, please.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, 25-1. That's my favorite single pick. And my best position on the pod is that defensive player of the year. The 4 brothers, Parsons, 6-1, Watt, 7-1, Garrett, 8-1, Bosa, 10-1, plus 114 implied. Let's just keep it clean at that. Play all 4 of those. Play Rodgers. Let's make some money together this year, winning awards.
Okay. All right. Wow. After all that, that's where we land. We should have just done MVP first, for crying out loud. All right, Brandon Anderson, great job. Again, folks, really important. You want to follow Brandon in the Action Network app, other contributors as well. But if Brandon, during the year, we're going to be with each other during the Best Bets pods every Thursday, and they'll come out Friday morning. But really important to find Brandon in the Action app. Follow him there for any positions he may add to the portfolio as the season unfolds. And the Jets, if the Jets beat the Niners, those odds 25-1 is going to shorten. He's so freaking right, and it's annoying. But we'll see how it goes. Reminder, tomorrow kicks off our NFL regular season programming here at the Action Network podcast. We've got our NFL roundtable episodes coming up next, covering the biggest topics around the league. Then, and the Jets will be talked about, which is annoying already. Then every Thursday morning, we've got our flagship betting previews with Stuckey and Raybon, who deliver their Sunday 6-pack for a 6th consecutive season. Every Friday morning, I'll be joined by Brandon Anderson for our Best Bets episode. As I teased a moment ago, he'll deliver his top 3 picks for the weekend slate into Monday as well, if needed. And then first thing, Monday morning, you'll get myself, Evan Abrams, Brandon Anderson for our NFL recap episode, plus a preview of Monday Night Football. For Brandon Anderson, Brendan Glasheen, stay tuned all week here. NFL Week 1 is here on the Action Network podcast. Best of luck with all your bets.